Welcome, everyone. You are here for the Exploring Artist Residencies webinar, and we'll be getting started in just a moment. Very excited you're here. If you could take a moment for anyone that has access to artworks, especially our students, if you could just hit this QR code to check in, we'd love to know who's in the audience. So now I have the honor of introducing our panelists. Carolina Porras Monroy is the current residency manager at the studios at MASS MoCA in North Adams, Massachusetts, where she oversees all things residency related from facilitating artists' day-to-day experience at the museum to the applications, jury process, and everything in between. Previously, she was executive director at Elsewhere Studios, a small community organization and artist residency space in Western Colorado. Carolina is also co-founder of Piney Wood Atlas, a collaborative artist residency research project highlighting DIY and unconventional residency spaces throughout North America through regional road trips. Based on the findings from the trips, Piney Wood Atlas publishes regional guidebooks as a resource tool for artists considering attending a residency, organizing their own space, or even for people who have never heard of an artist residency before and want to learn more. Oh, look at that. Piney Wood Atlas, Volume 4, available now. Interesting. Dani Klebes is the programming coordinator at the Wassaic Project in Wassaic, New York, and participated in the exhibition and fellowship programs before joining staff. She is a practicing artist, as are the majority of the staff at Wassaic Project. She has exhibited her work in galleries and museums across North America and Europe, including a recent solo booth at Spring Break Art Fair in New York. Wassaic Project was founded by RISD alums Bowie, Barnett-Zunino, and Jeff Barnett-Winsby. Liz Ferrill is the artistic director of painting, drawing, and printmaking at Anderson Ranch and the director of Artists in Residence program. She received her MFA from RISD in printmaking in 2009. Always exciting to have alums among us. And Karen Harris, my colleague who's joining me tonight and helping me present, is also a 1986 RISD alumnus. Karen's artistic talents have been showcased through numerous residencies and exhibitions across New England. She was featured in the Go Local Providence Inside Art with Michael Rose, and she participated in RISD's 2021 Black Biennial, highlighting her contributions to the arts community. Currently, Karen serves on the board of the Steelyard and the Providence Art in the City Life Commission. Karen is deeply involved in community engagement efforts. She's one of founding members of the RISD Black Alumni Affinity Group and a member of the RISD Center for Community Partnerships, serves as RISD Project Thrive Mentor, and acts as an advisor to the Black Arts and Design student group. For over 2 decades, Karen has been an integral part of the Career Center, where she currently holds the positions of internship manager and senior career advisor. She's also the parent of 2 RISD grads. All right. Well, those are our introductions for our panelists tonight, and I'm really excited about that part of the webinar tonight. I'm going to take some time to just go over some of the resources that the Career Center has available and to give a quick introduction to the topic. So, what is a residency? Artists need time and space for experimentation and discovery. Artist residencies can play a critical role in ongoing development of an artist's career. Most offer room and board, access to studio facilities, and community engagement. They have the potential to boost an artist's body of work, networking connections, and their career. Here we see Mar Figueroa, RISD 2015 illustration grad, as an artist in residence at Silver Art Projects in the World Trade Center. And I also wanted to highlight another RISD alum, Anina Major, who graduated from ceramics in 2017. Anina participated in Anderson Ranch Summer Workshop upon graduating, which led to other residencies and her first solo exhibition in 2019. Now we can see Anina's CV, that her career is fueled by both residencies and exhibitions. So at the top, the first section, it's a little small to see, but we see her numerous lists of solo exhibits and to follow her group exhibitions. And then scrolling down her CV, we can see the awards and residencies that Anina's participated in. So it's really interesting to see how residencies can be integrated in an artist's practice. Time and space to create, and that's the residency part, can lead to exhibiting work. Now, where are we going to find these artist residencies? Well, the Career Center has spent some time in providing resources to make available for our students and for our alums. So I want to start with that. In Artworks, which is accessible again to students and to participating alumni, students, you're able to use RISD Artworks, and we're posting art residency listings, including related grants, internships, and calls for work all year round. And we make it easy to search for in our platform, Artworks. Outside of our Artworks, we also have other excellent external resources, public resources that are available, and you can find them on our website. Our website is careercenter.risd.edu, and the page we're going to be looking at next is Artist Resources, and that's /artist-residencies. So here we review what an artist residency is, and we also provide some excellent leads to phenomenal platforms that list residencies out in the world. To start with, I'd like to highlight the ResArtiste platform, and the URL for that is resartiste.org. What's particularly interesting about the ResArtiste platform is the fact that it is very strong in terms of international representation, and it even provides this very, very clever and modern tool, seeing a map highlight to see all of the residencies that are currently available by country. And on the left-hand side of the screen, we can see that there are a number of different filters that you can use. You can filter by region, by discipline, lots of different aspects to focus in on what you're looking for. Another phenomenal platform is the Artist Community Alliance. This is actually based in Providence, Rhode Island. It supports people who power the field of artist residencies, administrators, artists, culture bearers, creatives, volunteers, neighbors, and community members. The organizations and programs that provide time, space, and resources for artists to advance their creative practice. This search tool, when you're looking at residency programs, allows you to search by really useful criteria such as region, context, which could be urban, rural, or remote, the program type, which can include studio, housing, community, or a retreat, the discipline or medium that you're looking for, special equipment in the studio facilities, and also studios that have ADA compliance. You can also look at open calls, and that you can search by the stage of your career for emerging or mid-career or established artists. You can search for collaborative residencies or even by residencies that provide meals. And here we see one of the listings for our friends at Wassaic Project. Couldn't help but pull that up when I spotted it. So ACA provides excellent resources to help artists understand the fees that are also associated with residencies and resources to find funding. So the residency cost worksheet at the bottom of the screen is particularly helpful to account for everything that needs to be paid during a potential residency. And you'll also notice a residency opportunities newsletter. And this has valuable information that's sent out on a monthly basis. I just received one today, so I couldn't help showing footage of it. And you can see that it's got It's chock full of awesome opportunities that you can find out by date with deadline breakdowns. And as you can also see, it spans a wide scope of residencies from all over the world. It's free to subscribe. And so now I'd like to review some of the partnerships that we have with residency programs. And so, founded in 1966, the Anderson Ranch Arts Center is located in the Rocky Mountains of Aspen Snowmass, Colorado, and the ranch hosts an extensive array of workshops in 7 disciplines, including photo, new media, ceramics, painting and drawing, furniture design and woodworking, sculpture, printmaking, and digital fabrication. The Artists in Residence program fosters artistic growth for emerging and established visual artists. The deadline for applying is in mid-February. Undergraduate and graduate students graduating in December or June who will be alumni during the residency can apply. It's funded equally by Anderson Ranch and by RISD Careers, and the coverage includes the cost of the residency, housing, studio space, and meals. And this supports an intensive 5-week residency of uninterrupted studio time in spring in Snowmass Village, Colorado. The Studios is MASS MoCA's Artist and Writers Residency program, situated within the museum's factory campus and surrounded by the beautiful Berkshire Mountains. The residency runs year-round and hosts up to 10 artists at a time. Artists of any nationality can apply for stays of 2 or 4 weeks. The deadline to apply is in early June, and eligible people are undergraduate and graduate students graduating in June who will be alumni during the residency. The opportunity is funded by RISD Career Center and covers the cost of the residency, which includes private studio space, housing across from the museum, and a daily communal meal. It supports a 2 or 4 week residency of uninterrupted studio time taking place in the winter or spring in North Adams, Massachusetts. We also have a partnership with Monson Arts. It's a residency program supporting emerging and established artists and writers, providing them time and space to devote to their creative practices. During each of the 2 and 4 week programs throughout the year, a cohort of 5 artists and 5 writers are invited to immerse themselves in a small town life at the edge of Maine's North Woods and focus intensely on their work within a creative and inspiring environment. The deadline for this is late March, and undergraduate and graduate students graduating in June who will be alumni during the residency are eligible to apply, and it is also available to all alumni. A 2-week or 4-week design-focused residency funded by Monson Arts is available. It includes room and board, a private studio, access to wood and metal workshops, and a $500 stipend for 2 weeks or $1,000 for 4 weeks. This supports an intensive residency focused on developing prototypes and designs and experimenting with materials. Takes place between August and December, 2 or 4 weeks in Monson, Maine. Founded by artists for artists, Skowhegan has offered artists the opportunity to engage with an experimental framework based on the idea of sharing knowledge and skills with and among artists. The deadline to apply is mid-November. Undergraduates and graduate students who will be 21 at the start of the summer program. You can be enrolled when you apply, returning to RISD after summer residency, or graduated from RISD when you undertake the residency. All non-US citizens are eligible, and you must be 21 years of age at the start of the program. A total of $6,000 in matching funds from the Career Center and Skowhegan covers tuition, studio space, housing, and meals. Alumni are eligible for the matching funds. However, currently enrolled students take priority for funding. If you want to be considered for matching funds fellowship, note your RISD education and complete the financial assistance section of the application, listing Kevin Jankowski, the RISD Career Center Director, as the contact. This supports an intensive 9-week residency of uninterrupted studio time. Residents are given individual studio spaces, as well as access to a sculpture studio, fresco studio, a media lab, a library, a rich community of artists, and acres of farmland, forests, and lakefront. It takes place in the summer in Madison, Maine. So now I'd like to open it up, our presentation, to our panelists.
So like Jason said, I'm the studio's residency manager at MASS MoCA, the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art in North Adams, Massachusetts, so not too far from y'all. We host writers and interdisciplinary artists, mostly visual artists, on campus in this very large and expansive campus, which is a former factory campus. So many gallery spaces to explore. And residents have 24/7 access to the studios. They get housing in furnished apartments right across the street from the museum, which is right in downtown North Adams. So everything is super conveniently located. Like Jason was mentioning, we have a cohort of about 9 to 10 artists at a given time for about 2 to 4 weeks. And we have a little bit of equipment for artists to utilize during their time. We have a pretty basic printmaking shop, as well as some looms, basic woodworking tools, supply closet, and the studio people can kind of use however they want to. We kind of let people go wild in there. They can paint on the walls, they can make installations, and yeah, really the time while artists are there is for themselves. We do program some events like open studios or different ways of sharing work. So we do open up to the public, and all of our events are optional, so artists can feel free to opt in and out. But of course, it's a great way to share your work with not only your residency peers, but also a lot of museum staff come to our events. And so we also do some artist presentations, and each session we invite a curator to come do studio visits for about 30 minutes in each studio. And again, that's people can opt in and out of that. So it'll either be a MASS MoCA museum curator or a curator from a local art institution. And so we do have the fellowship through RISD. We have different university fellowships, and we do offer lots of different fellowship opportunities for different types of artists and artists from all over the world too. So we host international artists as well as national. And I would say one of the best, most unique things about our residency space is the proximity to the MASS MoCA campus and the exhibiting art. So there are some longer term exhibits up, but there's also rotating galleries. So a lot of times while artists are in residence, there's a new exhibition that's opening up and they get access, they have membership access, which means they get into all of the free members events. So if there is an opening, artists are invited to, to the reception. Sometimes there's concerts, there's just usually a lot of activity. So again, people can choose to participate in those things, but I think it's just a really special way to take a break from your studio to be able to go into the museum for free at any time you want, well, while the museum is open, of course, and just sit amongst the artwork and take it at your own pace. Because if you've never been to MASS MoCA before, it is huge, and it is not a museum that you can finish in one day. I mean, you can, but you'll probably be exhausted and maybe haven't digested everything. So I think it's really cool that artists can kind of just spend time throughout their day in each space. And I do want to talk a little bit about my project that Jason mentioned, which is an independent project that I have with my collaborator and my best friend, who I actually met at an artist residency, Elsewhere Studios, which is the place that I also worked at later on. But It's a residency space that I found out about actually when I was in college, and I wish we had, you know, info sessions like this about residencies back then because I didn't really know about residencies. And when I went, it completely changed my life, and I met my collaborator um, and best friend. And you know, fast forward a couple years later, we began this project because we were kind of seeing this gap of how artist residencies are found. So there is a lot of these databases that Jason mentioned, which are super helpful. They lay everything out for you in an easy way, but then there's also the way of your friend telling you about it. So like your friend will go to a residency and they'll say, that was an awesome experience, you should check it out. But they might not tell you all of the like application details and all of those sort of like nitty-gritty details that you might need that you can get from those databases. So we wanted to become your well-informed friends that have gone to the residency, have outlined the information, but we're also giving it to you in like a fun firsthand experience type way. So, and we specifically wanted to focus on DIY and unconventional residency spaces because a lot of these databases where you find residencies like the Alliance of Artists Communities or Alliance Communities, they do charge money from the residencies for residencies to become members and like have their residency highlighted. And a lot of spaces, especially if they're small and emerging, they can't afford to pay a membership fee. So sometimes they're a little bit harder to find. And that's why we wanted to focus on those. So this is just a picture of one of the books. So we always have maps. And so we physically go and visit these residency spaces by doing a road trip. And usually like 2 weeks to a month, we'll go on the road and we'll find these places beforehand and we kind of like do a tour and we interview and take photographs and just hang out in the space. And all of this kind of comes together after the trip where we transcribe the interviews and we lay it all out sort of in a narrative way of just like us going to space mixed with the information from the interview. And so we try to focus on free residencies, but we also understand that smaller spaces sometimes can't offer all those things. So right now we have 4 books on the Northwest, the Southwest, the Midwest, and the Northeast. And we're currently working on our Southeast book because we took about a 4 to 5 year break because of COVID. We couldn't go visit the residencies, which is sort of the whole point of our project. So I just wanted to share that as a resource too, if you're looking for maybe something a little bit under the radar, because yeah, residencies can offer so much. I love the big ones. I love the small ones. They're all great. But yeah, just wanted to give that a shout out. So
I am Dani Klebes. I'm the programming coordinator at Wassaic Project. Wassaic Project is a residency and exhibition space in Wassaic, New York. It's this 7-story grain elevator, and we are actually the only grain elevator turned exhibition space in the US. There is one in Canada, though. And this front section over here is actually the oldest portion of this building, and that was built in the 1800s and was a hotel along the rail line. So these are our January artists in residence. We host residents year-round, and we also have 3 major exhibitions per year. There are August residents. This is staff, along with a couple of artists we're honoring. This is the programming team. So all facilitation for the residency and exhibition program is programming team. As I meant, or Jason mentioned in your introduction, thank you for that. It's artist founded, artist run. 2 out of 3 are RISD alums of the founders, and the third is Eve Biddle, a fantastic ceramicist. But yeah, this is programming team. So it's a physically large space and a relatively small staff doing everything, which is very exciting. And the hamlet of Wassaic. So anyone who's not familiar with Wassaic, it is the last stop on the Harlem line, about 2 hours north of Grand Central Station by train. It's a very rural space. We have 4 horses on our campus. Oh, this is the mill, and you can see the train in the bottom right there. That'll take you to Grand Central in 2 hours. The residency, we have residency year-round, 6 to 8 residents in the winter months and 8 to 10 in the summer months. We are not a product-oriented residency, so we do have a lot of programming and different things available for residents, but everything is optional. It's really however the artists want to use the time and space, like however it best furthers their practice. And we just try to support them in that. We do also have a family residency program, which I think is pretty amazing. So in addition to like individual artists coming, we have one house reserved specifically for family, and we very broadly define family as any sort of caregiving relationship. Residency houses, studios, and facilities. So we have 7 buildings interspersed around Wassaic, 3 residency houses. This is the inside of the lodge and the schoolhouse. And then this is the Luther Barn, where we have our summer studios and our wood shop and print shop, which are both under renovation at the moment, which is super exciting, but not currently running. So we have a very limited wood shop set up at the moment, and the print shop is down for the next few months, but hopefully soon. And we also have 2 kilns. This is the wood shop pre-renovation. And these are our summer studios. So it was an animal auction barn, and the individual animal pens were converted into studio spaces. So it's very large spaces, really rustic. They're semi-private, so some of them have like full walls, and some you can kind of see into the studio next door. It's pretty social in general, but it's kind of nice, like you can kind of see what everyone is working on. Summer studios, some of our residents. It's really fun seeing what people make in these spaces, because a lot of people respond to the architecture and like peeling paint, and you have so much room to make things. People go large. Kyle, with this sculpture on the right here, built this gigantic structure and then burned it at the end of the residency. These are our winter studios. So I mentioned before, it's like a hotel from the 1800s, and the individual hotel rooms have been converted into studio spaces. So they're roughly like 10 feet by 12 feet. Pretty small, pretty charming. Yeah, so it's winter studios. And we also have 3 exhibitions per year. So we have a summer exhibition, which is usually very large. Like usually for the summer exhibition, we'll have 30 plus artists included. And then we have a winter exhibition, which is usually around like 10 to 15 artists. More than 2/3 of the artists included in the exhibition program are past artists in residence. So we really like to keep those like relationships going and work with artists again. And we also do a lot of like NEA grants for like large outdoor projects with past artists in residence. Like a lot of people do the residency, and then we're still working with them like 10 years later, which is super cool. This is the 7th floor of the mill, where we have 1 artist per exhibition, and they usually take on like a very ambitious project. But this is Stephen Morrison built an entire dog cafe. And every single object in this room had like a dog face on it, including the paintings and like the shrimp and a shrimp cocktail. It was incredible. If you haven't been to Wassaic, come check out the exhibition. And the open call just ended for the summer residency, but we'll have an open call soon. Oh, and the Haunted Mill is the 3rd exhibition. So that is sort of like a hybrid between a residency and exhibition. The only thing we do that is product oriented, you do a 1-month residency that culminates in an artist design haunted house. And we had 2,000 people through in 3 days this year. It is the most fun Halloween ever, but it's pretty intense. So you have a month to design an installation. A lot of events and programming. We do artist presentations. Jeff, RISD alum, RISD photo alum, shoots resident portraits every month. We also do open studios. We have studio visits with Ghost of a Dream live in town, and they always do group studio visits. And then we also have artist talks and studio visits 2 to 3 times per month. Here are some recent visiting critics and artists. And that changes every month. We do, in like the lead up to residents coming, we ask who they would like to see, and we'll reach out to artists they recommended. And then fees, fellowships, and financial assistance. All of our fees are on a sliding scale. We don't want cost to ever be like a deterrent. But if people are able to afford it, there is a cost. And we have a variety of fellowships available. And here are some past artists in residence. And that's it.
Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz. I work at Anderson Ranch Art Center. Anderson Ranch has had a wonderful partnership with RISD for quite a few years. I am a RISD alum, and I'm really passionate about artist residencies. They're really a great opportunity for emerging artists and established artists to really be part of a community and also to gain access to facilities. Sometimes when you graduate, you're like, wow, I was a printmaker. Now I don't have a print shop. What do I do? I was a sculptor. How do I weld? How do I do all these things? So part of it is the access to facilities, and part of it is this amazing connection to people who are also artists and who give you that opportunity to continue to network and to continue to make connections with artists as you move forward. And it's really great for people coming out of graduate and undergraduate programs. So I'm really impressed with the Wassaic Project and also the community at MASS MoCA, and I want to apply for those. And I'm really appreciative of seeing that. Just to start, Anderson Ranch is in Snowmass Village, which is like 10 minutes away from Aspen, Colorado. Aspen has a world-class art museum and is kind of an interesting place for artists. There are so many collectors, so many curators, so many people interested in art. And one thing that's really exciting about Anderson Ranch is you get a lot of those folks coming through and recognizing you and seeing what you're all about. We have over 400 applications a year. February is our deadline, and I know that Jason, thank you for kind of going over what the program's already like, because it's more exciting for me to just talk about how exciting it is to be here. We have really a 10-week program right now, and we actually have Damien. Some of you might know Damien, who is a alum, and Madeline, who is coming in from RISD. They're here right now working in the studios in printmaking and wood. We recently had Soen Bay, who came as a sculptor from RISD. We're really proud of that connection. And I just want to say that the process to apply is going online, submitting an application, and then we have 3 jurors that take a look. And they're not from our organization. They're outside curators, artists, and critics. And they take a look at applications, and we get our artists ranked. So it's a great process that we love. And you can see down at the bottom, Kelly, she was also a RISD grad who came here as well. So a little bit about our program. You can apply in painting, printmaking, photo, new media, sculpture, ceramics, furniture, wood, as was mentioned. The thing that's really cool that I love about this residency, and I've done other residencies, like I have myself as an artist, I did Bemis. I loved it. There are so many great ones out there. One thing I love to like brag about as far as Anderson Ranch is our interdisciplinary program. So you can see here's some former residents from the spring. I didn't put any of the people who are here right now because they're a little bashful because they just got started and their work is still coming together. But these are some of our cohorts, and we get 16 residents per term. They're really incredible. And you can come as a painter, for instance, and then use interdisciplinary hours to get full support in another area. So if you want to work in the digital fabrication area, because maybe you're making shaped canvases, or maybe you want to work in ceramics so that you can make tiles or throw pots, you can really cross over into these other areas. And that's what's super fun. It's like an artist's playground. It's really, really a place for experimentation, for failure, for pushing yourself in all kinds of directions. And I think after you graduate, sometimes we all want to succeed, but it's also really great to go to a place where you have the safety and support to try new things and to really, see what works and see what you can add to your practice in a way that maybe is definitely available to you at RISD, but maybe is available in a different way in an artist residency. So we have a 10-week term in the fall, and we have 2 5-week terms in the spring. And most of our grads coming right out of RISD love the 10-week. They really love to come for a long period of time so they can really dig in. We do accept emerging and established artists. So one thing that's really exciting, we have a lot of, probably about half and half. We have some kids right out of undergrad or grad. And then we have these established artists who serve as mentors. And some of them are really amazing artists in their fields who are like either professors, or they might be working in the field and having amazing shows in various galleries. And they really serve as mentors. And then the folks coming right out of school serve as this amazing inspiration for everyone. So it's a great combo of artists in different stages of their careers. We provide meals, housing, studio space, and studio support. And one thing that's really unusual for us is that we have a whole staff. Like, each area has a staff person there to help you. So if you're like, I have never cast bronze, but I really want to learn, you have somebody there to teach you. We do have a lot of our students are here on fellowship, and students from RISD, if they're ranked, sometimes we get so many people accepted from RISD that we usually give about 4 a year to RISD students, depending, and we have a partnership, and it's really amazing. So that's for the studio fee, which is pretty nominal anyway, but it is really a wonderful support, and it's really incredible to partner with RISD. We also have a parent artist opportunity at Anderson Ranch, where we have a cabin that available to parent artists and their children or families or caregivers. And we also offer visiting critics. So similar to some of what you've heard, but we offer folks. This fall, we just had Ebby Barale, who came to Anderson Ranch to give feedback to all areas of all disciplines. And it's a 45-minute studio visit, really in-depth one-on-one. And then he gave a really incredible artist lecture. And our visiting critics always tailor their lectures toward residents, and so that they can really talk artist to artist. We also have Sophia Cohen, who is an incredible curator, collector, and sort of very savvy young person in the art world, who is coming in actually next week to have studio visits with our artists. I just wanted to kind of show you, this is Monica Curiel, who was working in our woodworking area, but she's more of a painter. She was juried in as a woodworker. We get a lot of crossover disciplines at Anderson Ranch. And so a lot of artists are working. It's hard to pick an area. And I know that's hard when you're in school as well. But at Anderson Ranch, we allow you to have a home studio, and then you can work interdisciplinarily across different areas. So you can try out a whole bunch of new techniques. And I also wanted to kind of end on an image. We actually have snow right now. This is an image from last December, but we have a holiday open house here at the ranch for our fall cohort, which means that curators and collectors and folks from Aspen, they come into the ranch. The residents open their studios, and folks come in and check out what what our residents are doing. We also do a resident slide night. And so that happens right away when residents come in. And it's an opportunity for folks to come and see what our residents are all about. They get to see an introduction to their work, and then they come back at the end of the residency to see what they've made. And, sometimes they buy work, sometimes they're just taking a look and looking to see what emerging artists are kind of looking like in the contemporary scene. And also our residents, they get the opportunity, the close proximity to Aspen. It's sort of going into the town and going to the art museum, seeing the galleries, being part of that. It's a rural residency, but at the same time, it's in close proximity to a lot of Marion Boesky, Baldwin Gallery, a lot of galleries and collectors in the area. And I know that's not everything. We really encourage experimentation. We encourage process over product in our residency. We're not trying to push that, but we also see that artists get really excited when they gain exposure to their work. And so it's really become also a part of the residency. Sometimes we do offer an exhibition in our gallery for our 10-week program. And we also have visiting artists. So it's a little different than visiting critics, but we have artists that are here working. For instance, right now we have Ruby Neri. She's an incredible sculptor who is actually coming to make prints with Anderson Ranch Editions and working on an editions project. So we have a lot of artists, even blue chip artists or artists who are further along in their career, who are coming in to experiment. So it's really fun to be on that same kind of par. We have a cafe on site. And so a lot of times it'll be visiting artists, residents, visiting critics, staff, sitting down together, having a meal, talking about art, and then going back to the studios and making it. So it's an exciting program, and I feel very passionate about artist residencies. I was hired to be the director of painting and printmaking, which is really an exciting thing for me, but I think that our residency program is really a passion project for me. And I think that bringing in artists and having a space for people to work and be supported is really important. So thank you.
All right, thank you. That was fantastic. And great to hear everybody's stories. So, this is the part where we get to open it up for questions. And just to start things off, I would like to ask a question. And as an advisor, advising students frequently that are interested in artist residencies, I do get some questions from them, and I think it would be really cool to start with kind of a provocative question, which is what are the do's and maybe even more importantly, the don'ts when applying? What are the things, the pitfalls that you've seen? Any kind of anecdotes that you could share that would be helpful to students that are considering taking this on for the first time? And I'll just open it up to whoever's most psyched to answer the question to start with.
I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. I think looking at applications over the years, one thing I would recommend is research your organization. So if you are passionate about a project and you write a proposal, make sure that the organization is able to support you in that. Sometimes we get folks who are like, I really wanted to come to Anderson Ranch and blow glass. We don't have a glass program at Anderson Ranch. We don't have the facilities. So I know it's overwhelming sometimes when you're applying for a whole bunch of things. And I know how it works because I remember doing that. And you do need to keep your facts straight and keep in mind what organizations offer. The thing I would say, the do's is talk about your work ethic, talk about your practice, what you might accomplish and what you hope to accomplish. Residencies don't typically hold you to a specific project. That's not the most important thing. One of the most important things is saying something like, I have a daily practice and I want to have a studio so that I can work each day on this thing and build my project. That can be really important, even more important than the content behind the project, so that jurors and staff can know kind of what your dedication to your practice is, and to kind of show that in your application and in your statement.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. That's excellent.
I would
Dani?
jump in too and just say, I think documentation is so important, like making sure that the images of your work are like well taken. Because it can be like the absolute most amazing work ever, but if it's like poorly lit or like it just looks strange in the photo, I feel like it's like deeply not putting your best foot forward. So that's a huge one. Totally agree with your dues, Liz. Yeah, that was a big one. Oh, and follow instructions. I think like if we say label the file a certain way, I feel like that's such like an easy thing, but it shows that you're like putting some effort into your application.
Arlena?
Yeah. Yeah, I completely echo all of that, Liz. And Dani, there was one time where in my previous job, we received an application for a different residency called Elsewhere. And it was very clear they were trying to apply to the other Elsewhere and not ours. And so
Ooh.
be mindful of all those details that jurors are looking at. And I would say specifically for the studios, we try to to have some like flexibility and understanding of people's residency goals might change, so we aren't putting a huge emphasis on that. But we do receive, this application round that just closed this past weekend. We received over 1,000 applications, and we have lots of jurors who we pay to look through those, but they're looking through a lot of applications. And so just depending on how artists are taught in school too, if they did go to school, to an art school, I think less is more sometimes, just trying to be concise while still getting your point across and also getting your personality across, because again, jurors are looking through a lot, and sometimes piecing together academic jargon can be really difficult. And so just think about how to say it all concisely while still showing your personality and like showcasing your concept.
Awesome. Thank you. This resonating with you, Karen?
Yeah, I have a question about people applying for residencies multiple times. Can you talk a little bit about that? You mentioned the jurors. Can you talk also about if the jurors change or how that works?
For the studios, we do we have first and second round jurors, usually first round jurors. We have many. I think this time we'll have around 17 first round jurors, and each application gets at least 2 people viewing them. Some people are returning jurors. They've definitely done it before. Majority of the jurors are past artists that have gone through our program, so they know our program very well, or curators, or from nearby local art institutions too. So we do have people returning, but the whole makeup of the juror team changes. And so there are jurors who do see applications come through multiple times, and it feels like that can be a good thing too, because they're like, this person isn't just submitting the same exact application. And so that's another thing. If you are applying to a residency and get rejected, that's fine. Like, I mean, that's happens. Like, we receive 1,000 for like 40 residency slots. So it's not, sometimes it doesn't come down to like, it just comes down to space. So people should be encouraged to apply again, to at least that's how the studios work. So you can apply as many times as you want. It's free. But we might want to see that, things have progressed. There is some change from application to application. It's not just, copied and pasted from the last.
Mm. Would anyone else like to speak to that? We have another question, but I want to give space if there's other comments.
I would just maybe add to what Carolina said about applying again and again. I think that can be really a great way to hone your application and continue to improve. And I would say that we at Anderson Ranch and most organizations, we hire different jury each year. So we have a new jury, and a lot of times it's based on the jury's interests. I mean, every person has their own interest. And so it's always hard to know how a jury is going to perceive your application, but just make it as strong as you can and don't take it personally if you don't get accepted, but keep reapplying.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you're both saying. For Wassaic Project, the first round is staff. So we narrow down, like for the summer residency, we had about 500 applications. We narrow it down to about half that goes to our panel. So it's great to see progress if somebody's reapplying. And then we publish our panel so you know who's looking at your work when you're applying. So if that's something, if you want to, tailor your application ever so slightly to these people, you know who's looking at it.
I would like to ask a specific question. I'm so glad that we're talking about the jurors. And this is one of those things that can be, intimidating or just very opaque to those that are applying and getting in on the process. Would it be reasonable to say that, like, if you apply for a residency spot and you don't get it, is there still an act, of value in the act of applying? You know, the thought being that if there are jurors with their own practices outside of their responsibilities to your residency, do they leave with impressions of the artists that they're seeing? Like, is there a secondary value to applying to residencies?
I mean, it's always good to throw your hat in the ring. And I think that gaining visibility, whether it's residencies, job applications, any kind of opportunity, you're showing yourself as part of the pool. And people do remember. Artists are incredible at their memory of looking at applications. And you might have one juror who gave you a very high ranking, thought you were their top applicant, and perhaps the other jurors didn't, perhaps you didn't get in, but they themselves might remember you. And I think it's just really always important as an artist to put yourself out there. So I would advocate for that.
I would also add, I feel like it just like helps your practice so much to, figure out how to talk about your work, narrow it down to 10 of your strongest images. Like, I just think like putting together an application can be so like enlightening in itself. And then I agree with artists seeing your work. And I feel like it's a very, very small world, especially with people participating in residencies. Like I saw Natalie Woodlock in Anderson Ranch's pictures, and then Kate Pasquarelli, our programming fellow, is headed to MASS MoCA soon. But I just feel like there's a lot of overlap quickly. So I think having people recognize your work, they might be in a new institution where they could help your career. If you pop back up, they'll be familiar with your name.
Yeah, I think it can also be, I think some residencies and different opportunities do charge application fees. So I do just want to highlight, like, sometimes it can be financially a barrier for artists to apply to all the things all the time. And so my cat needs me. I don't know if you could hear her scratching at the door, but she loves to do that when we're on Zoom meetings. So I think also being strategic about that kind of thing, especially if you are applying to opportunities that do cost money. Some of them can cost like between $30 to $50 to apply, which is why we don't offer, or we don't charge an application fee, because we just want, even just from the beginning, it to be accessible for artists. So yeah, just thinking about a strategy too. If you only have a limited amount of funds to apply to these different things, making sure that those places feel right to your practice and that you do have a good chance of getting them. But I do agree, it's just good to apply to things because it's good practice for your work.
I'll just add this really quick. I totally agree. Residency fees get very expensive very quick. Highly recommend emailing people if you can't afford it, because we will waive our fee, no questions asked. I think a lot of institutions, a lot of residencies will do that.
That's a great point. Thank you. We have a question that came in that I'd like to share. So, the question is, do you ever hire students to work as interns in your programs? Maybe to get some info on like what you might offer, like what are the types of internship roles that you might offer if they're available.
We do not at the moment. We've had internship and fellowship opportunities at different times, and I'm sure we will again, but at this exact moment, we do not have any, unfortunately.
What were the internships like, Dani, if you don't mind me asking? Like, what was the origin of the role?
So the internships, I've been with Wassaic for 3.5 years, and the internship program ended before I started, and it had moved to a fellowship program. Because we're such a small staff with so many tasks, it just ended up being like very difficult to have new people learning new things all the time. So the fellowship model was 1 year fellowships. And we're hoping to bring that back. Mainly we have like a print fellow, sculpture fellow, and our shops are closed at the moment. And then we had a programming fellow up until right now, but we're moving that to a full-time position. So it's always changing, but we'll have fellowships again soon.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
And those are 1 year paid fellowship, almost like a job?
Yeah, so they're like part-time, pretty low hours, and they include housing and a stipend,
And do they
like per
include a
month.
studio for the artists?
Yeah, they include studio and everything that the residents have. So they get studio visits, they have all of those opportunities as well.
Perfect. Thanks.
We offer an internship program at Anderson Ranch. It's in the summer months. And we have taken a lot of RISD grads for that program. So in the summer, we have a workshop program, and our interns come in late May and leave in late August or September. And they receive housing, room and board, and a stipend. And then they help with our workshops. So they're working with artists who are major, you know, contacts in their field. Last summer we had Micheline Thomas and Jasmine Wahi taught a class here, and our intern got to assist them. And we have artists in printmaking, Yashua Kloss, lots of really exciting artists that come to the ranch to teach. And so it's an opportunity to assist students, but also work with top artists in their fields.
MASS MoCA, as far as I know, doesn't have student internships at the moment. I think in the past it was a program that MASS MoCA had throughout different departments in the museum. But I think since we recently became unionized, there's something about internships that we're not able to have. So
Good to know. Thank you very much. All right. And just a reminder to folks that are viewing, go ahead and pop in a question in the Q&A panel if you have anything that you want answered, because we are ready for you. You're probably coming up close to the end. I always find it interesting when I get people together in a forum like this. I just love to take advantage of any parting comments that you might have about like things that you wish that you had known when you were starting out that we haven't already talked about tonight, but just any kind of advice that you have for folks that are starting out or considering this path that you could share with them. I'm going to call on Carolina first and go in alphabetical order and just put you on the spot, if that's okay.
that's cool. Yeah. Advice. So residencies are great. They are fun. They can be super inspiring places to meet people and get to know other people, but also yourself. They can also be a little bit overwhelming, if it's your first time doing it, especially if it's highly programmed and, a kind of like prestigious opportunity to receive. So just maybe finding ways to like get landed and grounded in the space initially. So I've seen folks who, you know, they bring certain things with them to feel comfortable, to feel at home, because it is jarring to be in a new place for like 2 to 4 weeks and be like, I'm here. And it is a whirlwind. So maybe finding different ways to find stillness and like grounding yourself in that, maybe keeping a journal, new ideas pop up, being in a new place. And I find that like visiting new places also, I like, there's like these lessons that I have learned that I want to take back with me to my daily life through the jobs and the, you know, and all of the like responsibilities I have. And it's easy to forget those like back home. So like recording that somehow. And that is my advice. So
Thank you, Carolina.
My next in alphabetical order.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think residencies are incredible. MASS MoCA was my first ever residency, and going into it, I definitely had some like imposter syndrome and got there, and there were like 3 other people who was also their first ever residency. And they're still some of my closest friends. I think I ended up after that doing 3 years of just residency hopping after grad school, and I think I made way closer connections and more connections from residencies than school even, which is saying a lot. Everyone's like very serious about their art practice. Everyone like really wants to be there and tried really hard to be there. So it's like a really incredible environment to be in. And my biggest advice is just to not like lose hope, because it is wildly competitive and it's not personal most of the time. Like we had 500 applications for 35 spots, and probably the top 100 were fantastic and would be great in our program. And it just depends on which cycle for if you get accepted or not. So keep trying. And yeah.
Thank you, Dani.
Yeah, I think when you go into a residency, I mean, it's always good to plan. It's always good to have your materials figured out and maybe some projects, but I also think it's really important to leave room for a change of course and for experimentation. And I know I've said this before, but I really think as a planner myself, it's really good to, if you're not a planner, come with a plan. If you are a planner, be ready to change course and really take advantage. If there's a visiting critic, sign up for that studio visit. If there's a field trip to a museum or another institution, go. Take advantage of every opportunity so that you're getting the most out of your residency. And I think also just be really thankful. I think it's really amazing that artist residencies exist. I think it's like a miracle. It's so incredible. And I've been to some, and it's been some of the best time of my life. I think there are times when folks go to residencies and they feel lost, or they might feel uncomfortable because there isn't the structure maybe that you have at RISD or in school, but try to build some of that in and think about self-care. And I know that a residency is considered self-care, but also when you go to a residency, think about the things that are going to sustain you for that time. So if it's exercise, we have a group that goes every day to our local rec center and goes swimming and works out, and then they come back and go back to the studio. If you need reading material, if you need, whatever it is to sustain you, is really important even in a residency. So think about those things as you're preparing.
Thank you. Karen, would you have any anecdotes to share? Advice for
Well,
those starting
I
out?
would say, I mean, I'm pretty much echoing everything everyone is saying. And I would pretty much say that using your network to help you prepare to apply for a residency is important. Because if you live in your own head, you just don't do it. You don't apply, you know. But if you've all talked about people that has influenced you or worked with you. I mean, Carolina, your buddies, and Dani, all of the, grad school and friends that you've met at other residencies and other artists, and Liz, your community. So I would say to encourage people to use their network to also help them understand what a residency is, and also to feel that they can put themselves out there to apply, because sometimes you just can't do it on your own, and you need a little bit of push. And I know, like, for myself, I started my residencies later in life because I didn't do that little thing that I'm saying. So then I had to have somebody meet me and say, hey, just apply, you know, and then I did. So, I would definitely tell that to anyone as well.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I think we have a question, Jason.
Yes, thank you. So, what did you do before the job that you have now, and what got you to where you are today as an arts professional? So, how did you get to where you are now? What did the first job look like that got you to where you are now? I worked in restaurants. That's how I got started on my career before getting into a design practice. What
I
about
can.
you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Were you still talking? Didn't mean
Please.
to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good, Dani. Thank you.
Um, I can jump in on this because I think it's like a very residency-based origin story. But I heard about Wassaic when I was residency hopping. I was at Vermont Studio Center, and some people were talking about it. So I came to visit, introduce myself, kept doing residencies for a while, and then met Will, who's the programming director at Hambidge Center residency in Georgia. He mentioned that there was an opening for a fellowship. So I applied for that, got the fellowship, and then eventually from there, once I had done the exhibition program and the fellowship, was hired to staff. But it was really just like networking, meeting people, being open to opportunities, following up with opportunities. Oh, and I did the MASS MoCA residency, and after that, the person who was in Carolina's role previously went on maternity leave, and I covered, so worked at the MASS MoCA residency for 6 months or so. So it's kind of like, following the opportunities and your network, like Karen said.
Thank you.
I can say that, before I went to graduate school at RISD, I worked for an art museum and worked on a lot of programming that got me really excited about artist communities. And I didn't know that that was what I would do. I would say I graduated in 2009, which was right after the crash, and there were no jobs in teaching or anything. And when I applied for the job at Anderson Ranch, I had never been here. I had never even done a residency ever in my life. And I kind of came here sight unseen, and it was a great kind of jump and leap for me. And I definitely enjoy being part of an artist community like this.
Thank you.
Similar to Dani, very much a residency origin story, but I went to school for drawing. I have my bachelor's from the University of Florida in drawing. And after that, I knew that I did not want to just go directly to grad school because I didn't want to be in debt mostly. So I was like, what are alternative ways to continuing to be an artist without maybe following the academic route, at least at that moment in my life. And then I heard about these weird things called residencies. I don't know how. I think it was through ResArtes actually, because I didn't have a professor or an advisor tell me about them. I feel like they've really gained traction and popularity in like since I graduated in 2012. So yeah, just going to my first residency, that one was very community focused. And while I was there, I witnessed like 100 community members building a naturally built art wall together, designing it, building it. I'd never seen anything like that before, just community coming together to build something so beautiful. And that is when I knew that I wanted to like continue working in community arts organizations, which kind of led me to residencies, because basically I went back to that same residency, Elsewhere Studios, to work there, which is not far from Anderson Ranch. And then eventually that landed me in this role, which I came to North Adams because of Piney Wood Atlas. We went to go visit a residency in town, which is run by the former person in my role that was on maternity leave that Dani like stood in for. She also has a residency outside of her home called Walkaway House. It's her and her family run it, and it's amazing. And so we came to visit their residency space for our book, but she was also working at MASS MoCA. So then one thing led to another, and then yeah, so kind of just similarly to what everybody's saying, is just you never know where life is going to take you, and you take risks and meet new people and have fun and make art.
Love that. That's a great note to end on. Well, thanks for everybody's time. For all of you that are in attendance, we will be following up with a link to the recording, as well as some of the links that were featured from tonight. So you can look forward to that probably early next week. And I just want to thank each of the panelists tonight. So Carolina and Dani and Liz, thank you for your time and sharing your expertise. Really lucky to have this as advisors and to share with the RISD community. So thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
say
you.
good night and take care,
Yes,
everybody.
thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.